You keep forgiving the ones who hurt you because somewhere, a child decided being left was worse than being broken. You keep choosing the ones who can't reach you back. That's the line nobody says. You make excuses for the person who keeps letting you down. You stay a little too long. You mistake that nervous ache in your chest for love. And the calmer ones? The ones who stay? They bore you in a week. You tell yourself you have a type. You don't. There's a reason you keep the people who keep hurting you close, and it has everything to do with a face you learned to wear. If you felt that little flinch of recognition just now, go ahead and subscribe. What we're about to name is the thing most people spend a whole lifetime feeling and never quite catch. Here's the part that turns it on its head. What you call a type was never taste. It's a survival skill you picked up in a house that taught you love had to be chaste, and the mask you wear to keep those people close. Carl Jung had a name for it. Why you still try to keep the people who keep hurting you close. The Psychology of the Mask by Carl Jung. Let's start with what actually happens, not the story you tell about it. Someone treats you carelessly, cancels, goes cold, gives you crumbs, and instead of pulling back, you lean in. You get curious. You start wondering what you did, how to fix it, how to win them back. Meanwhile, the steady person texting you good morning every day feels strangely flat. You're not broken for this. Your nervous system is just running an old program, one it wrote long before you had any say in the matter. Notice the shape of it. The unavailable ones feel like a puzzle, and the available ones feel like a void. That's backwards from how it should work, and somewhere inside you know it. But knowing doesn't stop it. You keep keeping toxic people close, keep mistaking the chase for chemistry, keep calling the anxiety butterflies. And every time it ends, you swear you'll choose differently next time, then you don't. This isn't a willpower problem, it's a wiring problem, and wiring gets laid down early. To understand it, we have to go back, past the breakups, past the situationships, to a much smaller version of you. There was a moment, maybe 1,000 moments, where love wasn't something that simply showed up. It was something you waited for. A parent who was warm on Tuesday and gone on Wednesday. A mood you learned to read before you could read words. You didn't get steady, you got weather. And a child raised in weather learns to feel calm as suspicious. Here's what that does. When affection is unpredictable, a kid doesn't conclude, this person is unreliable. A kid concludes, I have to work harder. So you became a reader of rooms. You watched faces. You learned that if you were good enough, quiet enough, useful enough, the warmth might come back. But spark, for a lot of us, is just the nervous system recognizing home. If home was anxious, then anxiety feels like love. Calm feels like a language you never learned to speak, so it reads as boredom instead of safety. Let me put a face on this. There was a person, grown now, successful, the kind everyone calls so easy to be around, who could not figure out why every relationship left them hollow. They chose the same partner over and over in different bodies. Charming, withholding, just out of reach. In therapy, they finally said it out loud. The nice ones feel like nothing to me. And the room went quiet. Because that sentence wasn't about the nice ones at all. It was about a 4-year-old still waiting at a door. That door matters. Go back to it for a second. Picture the child you were, standing somewhere in the house, listening for footsteps, trying to gauge from the sound of them whether tonight was a safe night. Maybe it was a slammed cabinet. Maybe it was a silence that meant you'd better disappear. You learned to scan, to soften, to make yourself convenient. That wasn't weakness. That was a small person doing brilliant, exhausting work to stay attached to someone they couldn't predict. And here's the part that reframes everything you've been calling a flaw. That hypervigilance, that radar for other people's moods, that talent for becoming whatever a room needs, those aren't defects in your character. That watching, that constant low-grade vigilance, has a name in the research: It's the early architecture of anxious attachment, and it doesn't dissolve when you turn 18. It just changes outfits. And this is where the mask comes in. To keep the unpredictable person close, you built a version of yourself that was easy to love, agreeable, low maintenance, endlessly accommodating. Carl Jung called this the persona, the face we present to the world to get what we need from it. For most people, the persona is a coat they take off at home. For you, it fused to the skin. You stopped knowing where the performance ended, and you began. The mask became the only you that ever felt safe. There's a quiet cost to that, and you've been paying it for years. When you're wearing the persona all the time, real intimacy becomes terrifying, because intimacy means someone might see behind it. So you choose people who never look. The emotionally unavailable are perfect for this. They're too busy with their own walls to peek behind yours. You get to feel the longing of love without the exposure of being known. It feels like passion. It's actually protection. Two scared people guarding opposite doors. Think about who actually attracts you, not on paper, in your body. The person who keeps you guessing lights something up. The person who's just there, steady, present, asking how your day was, registers as almost nothing. We tend to call that no spark. They're medals from a war nobody saw you fight. The fawn response, people-pleasing, the chronic self-abandonment, each one kept a child safe in a place that wasn't. The problem was never that the strategy was bad. The problem is that you're an adult now, and you're still using a child's map to navigate a world that finally has room for something else. So let's name the strategy honestly, because naming is where the relief starts. What you do isn't desperation. It's a transaction you learned. Somewhere early, you absorbed the idea that love was conditional love, that affection came with a bill attached, payable in good behavior. Be helpful, and you get warmth. Be needy, and it vanishes. So you became the helper, the fixer, the one who never asks for much. You learned earning love so thoroughly that receiving it freely now feels almost wrong, like a gift you didn't pay for and can't quite trust. Watch how that plays out with the people who hurt you. When someone gives you crumbs, you don't see crumbs, you see a debt you can work off. You think, if I just love them better, they'll soften. That's not foolishness. That's the exact survival logic of a kid who believed the cold parent could be thawed with enough effort. You're not in a relationship. You're in a rerun. And some part of you is still trying to win the original, the one whose approval you never quite secured, by casting strangers in their role. This is the engine of trauma bonding, and it's worth slowing down on, because it's so often mistaken for depth. The push and pull, the cold spell, then the sudden warmth, creates a chemical loop that intermittent reward always creates. The bad days make the good moments feel enormous. You start living for the thaw, and the cruel trick is that consistency can't compete with that high, because consistency doesn't have the crash that makes the reunion feel like rescue. You confuse the relief of the storm passing with love itself. There's real science under this, not just metaphor. Back in 1975, a psychologist named Edward Tronick ran what became known as the still face experiment. A mother plays warmly with her baby, then goes blank, flat, unresponsive for 2 minutes. The baby tries everything, smiling, reaching, squealing, then finally falling apart. What it revealed is profound. We are wired to fight for connection when a caregiver goes cold. That fight isn't a flaw, it's instinct. And if your childhood was full of still faces, you became an expert at that fight. Sit with what that means for a second. The very impulse that's wrecking your adult relationships, the lunging towards someone who's gone distant, is the same impulse that kept you bonded to a parent when bonding was a matter of survival. Your body never updated the stakes. To a 2-year-old, a caregiver's withdrawal genuinely is life or death. So when a lover pulls away and your whole chest seizes, that's not weakness or obsession. That's a nervous system dysregulation event, an old alarm screaming in a room that's no longer on fire. And the alarm shapes who you pick. People with this wiring don't tend to fall for the steady and the safe. They fall for the ones who recreate the original tension. There's a flicker of recognition. Oh, you! Not because they're good for you, but because they feel like the place you came from. This is the part nobody warns you about. Your picker isn't broken, it's loyal. Loyal to a blueprint drawn when you were too young to consent to it. And loyalty like that doesn't break easily, but it can be retrained. Here's a small practice, because awareness needs a handle. The next time someone pulls away, and you feel that frantic pull to chase, pause, and put a hand on your chest. Then ask one question. How old does this feel? Not how old are you, how old does the feeling feel? Most people are startled by the answer. It's rarely 34, it's usually 5 or 7 or some specific small age. That single question creates a gap between the child's panic and the adult who's now allowed to choose differently. Because the fear underneath all of it has a familiar face. It's the fear of abandonment, not as an idea, but as a body memory. You will tolerate astonishing amounts of pain to avoid that specific feeling of being left. You'll shrink, apologize, contort, stay. You'll keep silencing your needs because needs were what made the warmth disappear in the first place. Somewhere you decided that being abandoned was worse than being mistreated. A child raised in scarcity will always choose a bad connection over no connection at all. And that decision, made silently decades ago, is still running the show. It's why you walk on eggshells around people who should be walking carefully around you. It's why you read a short text and spiral. It's why "I'm fine" comes out automatically while something inside you is anything but. The exhaustion of this is real, emotional exhaustion that no amount of sleep touches, because it's not your body that's tired. It's the part of you that's been performing safety non-stop since before you can remember. But notice something. You're still here, still trying, still reaching, still hoping the next one will be different. People might call that naive. I'd call it evidence. Evidence that the capacity for love in you was never the thing that broke, only the aim got bent. The wanting is intact. The tenderness is intact. What got distorted was the target, the belief about who deserves it and what it should cost. And a bent aim can be straightened once you can finally see the hand that bent it. So let's straighten the aim slowly, starting with what love has actually meant to you. For most of your life, it's been a verb that requires effort. Something you do, perform, earn, maintain. It's been chasing approval and reading moods and bracing for the withdrawal. But that's not love. That's labor. That's the job you were handed as a child and never got to quit. Real love isn't a performance review you pass or fail every day. It's allowed to be boring sometimes. It's allowed to just sit there, steady, asking nothing. That steadiness only feels empty because you were never trained to trust it. And this is the cruelest part of the whole pattern. The people who could actually love you well are the very ones you dismiss. The kind one feels boring. The consistent one feels like there's no chemistry. You scroll right past safety because safety doesn't trip the old alarm. So you keep the people who hurt you close and keep the people who'd be good to you at arm's length. Not because you're self-sabotaging on purpose, but because your inner compass was magnetized toward chaos before you could read a map. The needle points home. Home was just a hard place. Go back one more time gently. Picture that child at the door again, the one listening for footsteps, scanning for the mood. Now notice what that child wanted. Not drama. Not a chase. They wanted someone to come home calm. They wanted to exhale. The whole exhausting performance was just a strategy to manufacture a safety that should have been free. That child didn't want the thrill of the unavailable parent finally turning warm. They wanted a parent who was warm all along, so the watching could stop. You wanted peace. You just learned to get it the hard way. This is where the mask gets heavy, because Jung's persona was never meant to be worn around the clock. He drew a line between the persona and what he called the shadow self, everything you exiled to keep the mask convincing. Your anger went there. Your needs went there. The version of you that wanted to say, "This isn't enough for me," got locked in that basement, because that version threatened the connection. So you became agreeable on the surface and abandoned underneath. Self-abandonment isn't a dramatic act. It's 1,000 small moments of choosing the relationship over yourself. And every time you do that, every time you say yes when you mean no, swallow the truth to keep the peace, laugh off the thing that actually stung, you widen the gap between who you are and who you're performing. That gap is where the loneliness lives. It's why you can be in a relationship and still feel profoundly unseen. Because the person across from you is in a relationship with the mask, not you. They can't love what you won't show them. And you won't show them, because showing them is exactly what felt fatal when you were small. Here's a practice that goes deeper than the last one. Take a quiet moment and write a short letter, not to a partner, to the child at the door. Tell them the thing no one told them. That none of it was their job, that a 4-year-old was never responsible for a grown adult's moods. Watch what comes up as you write it. For a lot of people, the throat tightens, the eyes sting, and that's not you falling apart. That's the start of inner child healing, the moment the exiled part finally hears someone take their side. Probably for the first time. Because the reframe you most need is this: you were never too much, and you were never not enough. You were a child calibrated perfectly to an environment that asked too much of you. The fawning, the vigilance, the keeping the peace. Those were the right answers to the test you were given. The test was just rigged. And the beautiful, disorienting truth is that the test is over. The room you're standing in now is not the room you grew up in, even though your body keeps insisting it's the same one. What changes everything is learning to feel the difference between familiar and safe. Those two have been fused in you since the beginning. Chaos felt familiar, so chaos felt like home, so chaos felt like love. But familiar is just what you've practiced. It is not the same as good. The first time you sit with a kind, steady person and feel that flat nothing, I want you to reframe the nothing. That's not absence of love. That's absence of threat. Your system is so used to scanning that peace registers as silence. Peace is what you've been chasing the whole time, wearing the wrong face to find it. And here's where agency quietly enters, not as a demand, but as a door. You don't have to tear off the mask all at once. That would terrify the part of you that built it. You just have to start noticing when you reach for it. The over-apology. The reflexive, it's fine. The shrinking. Setting boundaries doesn't begin with a grand confrontation. It begins with one honest sentence you'd normally swallow. Each time you let your real preference show and the relationship survives, the old equation, needs equal abandonment, gets quietly rewritten. That rewriting is slow, and it's supposed to be. You're not undoing a bad habit. You're updating a survival system that genuinely believed your life depended on the performance. Be patient with the part of you that flinches at calm, that misses the chaos, that wants to text the person who hurt you. That part isn't your enemy. It's a young protector who never got the memo that the war is over. You don't fight it. You thank it. And then, gently, you let it know that you've got it from here, that the watching can finally stop. So what do you do with all of this, now that you can see it? You start by catching the moment of choice you never knew you had. The pull toward the unavailable one will still come. The steady one will still feel quiet. But now there's a sliver of space between the feeling and the action, and in that space lives everything. You can feel the old magnetism and not obey it. You can notice this feels like home and answer, softly, yes, and home was a hard place. I'm allowed somewhere kinder now. That sliver is where self-trust is born, one honored instinct at a time. And slowly, the people you keep close begin to change. Not because you forced yourself to want different ones, but because you stop needing the chase to feel alive. The mask loosens. The shadow comes home. You find you can sit with someone calm and feel, instead of boredom, something that's almost relief. That's coming home to yourself, not becoming someone new, but returning to the one who existed before the watching started. The child at the door doesn't have to listen for footsteps anymore. You came home. You can let them stop waiting now. So here's where I leave you, not with a task, but with a question to carry. If love has always felt like something you had to earn, what would it mean to let yourself be loved on a day you did nothing to deserve it? Sit with that one. Let it be uncomfortable. Because the discomfort is just the old wiring noticing it's being questioned for the first time. I want you to look back at your own story with the eyes you'd use for a child you adored. The version of you who learned to chase, to scan, to keep the difficult ones close. That version wasn't foolish or weak. They were resourceful. They kept you connected in a place where connection had to be fought for. Can you find even a little tenderness for them now? Can you thank them instead of blaming them? And maybe the bravest thing isn't choosing better people. Maybe it's learning to feel safe when someone is simply quietly good to you and not mistaking that peace for the absence of love. That's the work. Not finding the spark, but redefining it. Before you go, do one small thing for me. In the comments, write a single word that describes the child you used to be, the one standing at the door, listening for footsteps. Just one word. You'll be surprised how much company you find down there. Thank you for staying all the way to the end of this. Not everyone can sit with something this close to the bone, and the fact that you did says something about where you are, not lost in the pattern anymore, but finally turning around to look at it. That turning is everything. Here's the truth your whole life has been circling. The chaos felt like love only because it was the first language you were ever taught, and a first language can feel like the only one, right up until the day you realize you were always free to learn another. Familiar was never the same as safe. You can feel the difference now. And the steady person who once felt like nothing. Look again. That quiet was never emptiness. It was the room finally going calm. If this gave you even one word for something you felt your whole life but never named, you might want to stay close for what comes next. There's more of this map left to draw, and we're walking it one quiet piece at a time. But notice the door isn't fully closed yet. Even as you turn toward the calm ones, something in you still tightens when someone goes quiet, still braces for the vanishing. Recognizing why you chase the unavailable is one thing. Understanding why you grip so hard the moment love feels close. Why a single unanswered text can flood you with dread, that's a different room entirely. You were never clingy. You learned early that the people you loved could disappear without a sound, without a warning. And nobody ever explained where that terror really comes from.